So today we are going to analyze a masterclass of a game played in 1936 by two, I believe, Russian players. We will be taking a look at this game. And we will be looking at the game by the black pieces. You will see why we are doing that later in the video. So the white player is Alexander Kotov, and the player with the black pieces is Igor Bondarevsky. I think I'm not pronouncing his name correctly, but Alexander plays d4, the queen's pawn opening, and Igor responds with e6, maybe trying to go and play the Queen's Gambit. Queen's Gambit declined, but Alexander plays knight f3, and Igor plays f5, the Dutch defense. And then they continue with g3, trying to develop the bishop via g2 and put it on the g2 square and castle the king. Igor plays knight f6, developing a knight controlling the central squares in the middle of the board. And Alexander fianchettos his bishop on g2. And we have d5, creating the stone wall. If you know, when the stone wall structure is when you put most of your central pawns on the same color complex. For example, you have all of these three pawns on the same color, the light squares. For example, you could go c6 and complete your structure. White responds with castles, just getting the king out of the center. And we have bishop d6, developing a bishop. In this position, you could have completed the structure with c6. That would have been a completely normal move. But we have bishop d6, c4, attacking the center. You could take the pawn, but it's not really good because you will lose the pawn immediately. You can't really defend the pawn. So we have c6, completing the stone wall and putting these four pawns on the light squares. And because the center, we are controlling the center with the light squares, the light squared pawns, we should really trade this bishop off, maybe somehow like this, or maybe get it out like this and trade it. We have knight b to d2, just protecting the c4 pawn and developing a knight. We have castles, and b3. b3 tries to fianchetto the other bishop to this diagonal and protect, and not protect, just relieve the pressure on the center. And here black has a lot of moves. Black can play their knight to d7, or could play b6 and try to develop the bishop. But Igor plays a weird move. Not a weird, but just an interesting move. Queen e8. The engine doesn't really love this move, but this move tries to get over here and start a kingside attack. Here Alexander plays the move knight to e1. The reason and the purpose of this move is to get this knight to f3, as you can see. That's because this knight would be really good. Like, if you had a position where this knight was on f3 and this knight was on d3, you would have great control over the e5 square, which would be really good because the only pawn breaks for black are c5 and e5, and he would control one of them, which is e5. And the other idea is to, in the future, make the f pawn available to move. Now black responds with knight b to d7, controlling the e5 square and maybe playing c5 in the future. We have knight d3, as we said, trying to control the e5 square. And then we have knight e4. This move, of course, tries to, trade the pawns. This move is really tricky because you can't really trade the knight here. That would be a really bad move, because after pawn takes, your bishop is horrible. Your bishop is not participating in the game. And after this move, Alexander didn't take and played knight f3, avoiding the exchange on d2. And again, as we said, trying to put every bit of pressure he can on e5. And we have queen h5. This move is not the best move because black doesn't have enough power to attack. You don't have enough pieces in the attack. For example, before queen h5, you could have maybe had your knight come into the game, or maybe played h6 and g5 to prepare the attack. But Igor just went straight into the position and played his queen to h5, and Alexander played knight f4. This move attacks the queen, of course, and his idea, Alexander's idea, was that if Igor wants to keep his queen on h4, h5, he would have to take, and he could develop a bishop. But the point is that you don't need to, and you could go back with the queen. But the move that the engine likes to play is bishop f4, and the reason is because you are trying to trade the bishop and then go knight f4. Because then the bishop would never take. For example, if we get the trade, white would enjoy a really better position for the rest of the game. But after knight f4, Igor just moved his queen back to f7. And now here Alexander plays the move queen to c2, putting some pressure on the knight and maybe trying to take here or push to c5. We have g5. g5 is a really aggressive move because you are pushing pawns in front of your king and making it vulnerable, because if a bishop comes on b2, then this diagonal should not get opened, because your king will be really weak on the dark squares. Alexander goes back to d3 with his knight, and now we again go back to h5 with the queen. The reason is that now we will never get kicked out of the position, and we have a lot of attacking ideas, like getting this knight to g5, g4, and another idea could be to go rook f6 and rook h6, forming this battery on h2. Alexander responds with the move knight to e5. This move, the purpose of this move is to make the move f3 available and to try to kick this knight. We have rook f6, trying to execute the plan and go rook h6. f3, trying to kick the knight out. So although right now it's completely trapped, and the only move is to go rook h6, forming this battery. Here white played the move h4. The reason that h4 is the only move is because if you had played the move h3, then I would have taken on g3, attacking the rook, and when you move the rook, I would now take here and just get a better position and be up a pawn. But after h4, when you take on g3, now I can take on g5. But in this position, Alexander makes a mistake and he doesn't play the correct move. The correct move is to take with the bishop. That is, not to open the h file for the queen. But Alexander makes a mistake and plays h takes g5. That is a very big mistake by him. Now Igor can give this check, and then his rook is under attack, and he should of course do something. And the best move here is rook h4. That's because you're attacking the d4 pawn and you're cutting the king off. So if the king ever wants to run away from the queen and the attack, it couldn't. Now Alexander plays rook g1, protecting the bishop and getting his rook out of danger. Now Igor takes the pawn. It's a completely fine move. And now we have bishop b2 attacking the rook. Here Igor doesn't play the most accurate move, but he plays a very creative move, and that is queen to h4. The idea is that you are threatening some discovered checks and double checks on this king. Alexander here makes a mistake, and after this move is not a mistake. He takes the rook, and here Igor gives this double check, and here he makes a really big mistake. Alexander here blunders into mate in 5 moves with king to e3. Here Igor has a mate in 5 moves, but this mate is really complicated. Here the best move for black would be queen f2, but the knight is protecting. So Igor first gives a check on f4 with the pawn. Now the only legal move is to take with the knight, and now you go queen f2 check, executing your plan. The only move is king d3, and now in this position Alexander plays a beautiful move. I've been missing their name. Igor here plays a very beautiful move. He sacrifices his queen in the middle of the board, and here the only move for Alexander is to take, and then Igor gives a check, and Alexander Kotov resigns. The reason is that you are forced to go to d3, and after that knight takes e5 is a checkmate in 1 move. What a beautiful game this was by Igor Bondarevsky. I hope you have enjoyed the video. Goodbye.